Hey, partner, come on in close. Pull that chair right up to the fire tonight. Pour yourself something strong, coffee, whiskey, whatever keeps the cold out of your bones. This one's gonna take a while, and it's gonna hurt good before it heals. The sun was dying slow and beautiful over Montana, bleeding orange and crimson across the big empty when Jack Harlan finally let his buckskin mare stop walking. The Broken Arrow Ranch sat there like it had been waiting on him all his life. Dust rose off his shoulders in little ghosts when he swung down. His boots, Lord, those boots, had walked through 3 territories and more regret than any man ought to carry. The cuffs of his jeans were frayed white, the color of surrender. He looped the reins with the same half-hearted knot he'd been tying since Texas, since everything went wrong, since he stopped believing he deserved a place to leave his hat. He was 34 going on 100, lean like rawhide left too long in the sun, eyes the color of storm clouds that never quite break, short dark hair under a Stetson that had shaded him through too many funerals, beard trimmed close, military neat, because some habits die harder than men. There were lines around those eyes, not laugh lines, never laugh lines. He climbed the porch steps slow, like each one might be the last thing he ever stepped up to. Then he knocked, twice, heavy, like the sound had weight. The door opened a crack, then all the way. A woman stood there holding a Spencer carbine like it was an old friend who never lied to her. Clara, broad in the shoulders, strong in the way only women who've buried a coffin get strong. Honey blonde hair twisted back so tight it looked painful. Eyes the color of winter river ice, beautiful and sharp enough to cut. She had buried a husband, raised a daughter, and kept the wolves at bay with her own 2 hands, and right now those hands didn't shake. Jack touched the brim of his hat. "Evening, ma'am." The rifle never moved. "You with the Bar S outfit, come to burn me out?" "No, ma'am. Riding alone, out of Colorado way." He swallowed dust and pride. "Looking for work, any kind, honest pay for honest sweat." Clara looked him over slow, boots to eyes, like she was reading every mile he'd run, every promise he'd broken, every grave he'd dug with his own hands. "You good with stock? Can you smell sickness in a herd before it shows? Can you gentle a coat that's half wild with fear?" "Yes, ma'am." "Fix fence in a blizzard? Shoe a horse with nothing but cold iron and cussing?" "Done it more times than I can count." She leaned in just a breath. "Can you put a bullet exactly where it needs to go when the only thing standing between my little girl and the dark is you?" Jack held her stare. His voice came out rough. "I can, when I have to." Something passed between them then, something older than words. Not trust, not yet, just the raw recognition of 2 people who'd both stared death in the face and hadn't blinked. Clara finally leaned the Spencer against the doorframe. She crossed her arms like she was holding herself together. "I'm Clara Morrow. My man's been in the ground 2 years. This land, this house, this life, it's mine to defend now." She drew a slow breath that seemed to hurt. "Here's the truth, Jack Harlan, and I'll only say it once. I don't need another drifter who'll eat my food and ride off when the coffee gets bitter. I don't need a ranch hand. I don't need a gunslinger." She looked him dead in the eye, voice dropping, soft and fierce. "The only position I have open is Dad." The words hit him like a .45 slug to the chest. He blinked once, twice. "Beg pardon, Mom?" "You heard me. I've got a 7-year-old girl asleep in there who's already buried 1 father.
She needs a man who'll teach her how to rope the wind, how to read the weather in a cloud, how to keep her heart beating when this world tries to stop it. I'm not asking for pretty words or Sunday manners. I'm asking for someone who'll stay when staying hurts. Someone who'll be the wall between her and every bad thing coming. From the window, a tiny face appeared. Ellie. Hair the color of summer wheat, eyes too old for 7. She watched him like he might vanish if she blinked. Jack's throat worked. He tried to find air. I ain't the nurturing kind, ma'am. I break more than I fix. Clara gave a short, bitter laugh that turned into something softer. Look at that colt on your hip. Ivory grips worn smooth. Cavalry draw. Old regiment engraving half filed off. A man doesn't carry a gun like that because he's gentle. He carries it because, once upon a time, he wasn't given a choice. Jack felt the weight of the revolver like it had grown roots into his soul. I'm no saint. Never asked for one. Saints don't last long out here. I need a man who knows what the dark feels like and still chooses morning. Jack looked past her to the endless plains, to the horizon he'd been chasing like it owed him peace. He could mount up right now, ride north, keep running from the name that still made men reach for iron when they heard it. Instead, he heard his own voice, cracked and raw. What's the wage? Bunk in the hayloft, 3 meals if we have 'em. You treat her right. You stay. No matter how loud the ghosts scream. You ever make that child cry because you left? I swear on my husband's grave, I'll put you in the ground myself. He looked at the porch light flickering on behind her. Warm, steady, alive. He nodded once, real slow. I'll stay tonight. Clara stepped aside. Her name's Ellie. Don't call her baby or little girl. She's been grown since the day they carried her daddy home across a saddle. Jack crossed the threshold. The door shut soft behind him, and for the first time in 10 years, the night didn't feel quite so heavy. The first week was quiet the way a held breath is quiet. Jack rose before the stars quit, fed the stock in silence, fixed fence till his hands bled, ate alone on the back step, watching the sun come up like it might be the last one he deserved. Ellie watched him from windows, from behind hay bales, from the loft, always watching, never speaking. She carried a tiny carved Mustang in her pocket like a heartbeat she could hold. One afternoon, he found her wrestling with kindling too big for her arms, tears of pure fury in her eyes because she refused to ask for help. He set an old peach tin on the rail 50 yards out. Ellie, you ever shot a pistol? She wiped her face with the back of a dirty hand and shook her head. He drew the Colt slow like it was made of nitroglycerin and laid it in her small palms. Her fingers were shaking. He helped her thumb the hammer. Breathe, darling. Guns don't like fear. They feed on it. He helped her thumb the hammer. Squeeze like you're telling it a secret, not yelling one. The first 4 shots kicked dust. The fifth sent the tin flying with a singing ping. Ellie stared at the smoking barrel like it had spoken another language. She looked up at him, eyes wide, shining with something dangerously close to hope. "That count, Mr. Jack?" His heart cracked clean open. "It counts for everything, Ellie." She turned the Colt over in her hands, tracing the worn ivory. "You always wear it?" He started to say habit, but the word died. "Used to think I had to." She sighted down the barrel at nothing and everything. You have ever killed somebody?" The question was soft as a prayer and sharp as a skinning knife. Jack couldn't lie to those eyes. "Yes, baby, I have." Ellie handed the gun back real careful, then walked away without another word. Clara had watched from the porch. She didn't say anything until that night, over coffee thick enough to stand a spoon in.
"She ain't cruel, Jack. She's 7 and already knows what forever feels like when it ends. She watched her daddy die slow in the dirt because some drunk cowboy took offense at a hello. She screamed till her voice gave out, and he still left her." Jack stared into his cup like it held answers. "I never had a daddy long enough to miss one," he said quietly. "Don't know how to be what I never saw." Clara reached across the table and touched his scarred knuckles, just once. "Then be what she needs now. That's enough." Then came the rider with the letter. Then came the name Cole Ramsey. Old partner, old sins, old blood. Then came the nights Jack couldn't sleep for remembering villages that burned because he followed orders. He told Clara all of it one night by lantern light, every ugly truth. She listened without flinching. When he finished, she only said, "You helped make widows once. Now you get to choose not to make another one, including me." Ellie left him drawings after that. 3 stick people holding hands under 2 big stars. One always wore a hat too big for the paper. One night she crawled into his lap by the fire, uninvited, unexpected, and fell asleep with her wooden horse clutched to her chest and his heartbeat under her ear. Jack sat there till dawn, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid the moment would shatter if he so much as shifted. He cried then, silent, the first time since he was 9. Clara found him like that. She didn't speak, just rested her hand on the back of his neck until the shaking stopped. Then Ramsey's dying scout crawled in laughing blood, calling Jack gravedigger, loud enough for the wind to carry it to every saloon in 3 counties. Then the mayor begged Clara to send him away. Then Clara stood on her porch and told the whole damn town, "He leaves when hell freezes over or when I'm dead. Pick one." But that night she made Jack tell Ellie the worst parts. He did, kneel in front of that little girl like she was a judge and a priest all in one. When he finished, voice broken, Ellie looked at him a long time. Then she took the cartridge he'd given her weeks ago, the one she'd scratched tiny wildflowers into with a nail, and pressed it into his hand. "Don't leave us, please." 2 hours later, Jack was saddling his horse in the dark. He left the flower-carved bullet on the porch step, wrapped in his bandana. By moonset, the yard was empty. Clara found the bullet at dawn and screamed, a sound no human throat should make. She packed to run. Neighbors offered sanctuary. Ellie wouldn't speak, just clutched the empty bandana and stared at the horizon like it had stolen her soul. Then the note came, nailed to the gate with a bowie knife. Send the gravedigger out alone by sundown, or we burn the ranch with the girl inside. C.R. Clara's hands shook so hard she couldn't load the Spencer. She was on her knees in the dirt praying for the first time since her husband died, when the sound of hooves came back. Midnight. No moon, just a rider materializing out of the dark like a ghost choosing to be flesh again. Jack, hat low, jaw set, eyes that had finally decided where home was. He swung down, walked straight to Clara, and dropped to his knees in front of her. "I was wrong," he rasped. "Running don't bury ghosts. It just leaves the people you love holding the shovel." Clara couldn't speak. She just grabbed the front of his shirt and cried into his chest like a dam finally breaking. He found Ellie on the porch steps clutching that bandana like a lifeline. He sat beside her, didn't touch her, just sat. Minutes bleeded into hours. Finally she leaned, slow, cautious, until her head rested against his arm. That was all the forgiveness he'd ever need. Dawn came angry and red. 10 riders thundered down the draw like hell's own posse. Cole Ramsey at the front, black duster, blacker heart, grinning like he'd already won. Jack stepped into the yard alone, rifle in one hand, the flower-carved cartridge in the other. Ramsey reined up 20 yards out. "Grave digger," he laughed. "Still digging your own hole, brother?" Jack's voice carried steady across the blood-warm dirt. "I dug my last grave today. Yours or mine, don't matter, but these people ain't part of it no more." The world exploded into thunder and smoke and screams. Jack fought like a man with nothing left to lose and everything to keep. He dropped 4 before a bullet tore through his shoulder and another punched his side. He went to his knees in the dust, blood pouring between his fingers, vision tunneling. Ramsey walked forward slow, pistol raised for the coup de grace. That's when the scream came, small and mighty and shattering. "Daddy, no! Don't you leave me again!" Ellie burst from the house barefoot in her nightgown, hair flying like a battle flag, and she hurled that flower bullet with every ounce of 7-year-old fury straight into Ramsey's face. It wasn't enough to kill, but it was enough to flinch. Clara rose from the barn shadows like an avenging angel and put a .44 slug through Ramsey's gun arm. The pistol spun away. Ramsey screamed and fell. Jack looked up through blood and tears and saw his little girl running toward him, toward the guns, toward the dying, toward him. And in that moment, he found the strength to stand. He walked through the smoke, picked Ellie up with his one good arm, and held her so tight she squeaked. Clara reached them, dropped her rifle, and wrapped them both in arms that would never let go. Behind them, Ramsey crawled in the dirt, broken. Around them the ranch still stood, and for the first time in his life, Jack Harlan wasn't running. Spring came gentle that year. The apple tree behind the barn burst into blossom so thick it looked like heaven had spilled snow that didn't melt. Beneath those branches, Jack stood in his only clean shirt, hands shaking worse than any gunfight. Clara wore the simple blue dress she'd married her first love in, because some things are worth wearing twice. Between them stood Ellie, holding 2 plain gold bands tied with a piece of baling twine, grinning like she'd won the world. Jack knelt so she could reach. She slipped the bigger ring on his finger first. "Now you can never take it off," she informed him seriously. "That's the rule." Then she handed Clara the smaller one. Clara's voice trembled but never broke. "You weren't hired to be her father, Jack Harlan. You walked through fire and chose to be her dad anyway." Jack looked at the little girl who'd given him a name worth carrying. "I'll keep choosing it," he said, voice thick with everything he'd never known how to feel. "Every sunrise, every storm, every single day the good Lord lets me wake up on this side of the dirt, I'll choose you both, over and over, till my last breath." Ellie threw her arms around both their necks and hung there like a promise neither wind nor time could break. That night they sat on the porch, 3 silhouettes against the sweetest dust Montana ever gave anybody. Ellie fell asleep between them, her head on Jack's chest, listening to the heart that had finally decided to stay. Clara's hand found his, fingers laced tight. Out beyond the fence, the land rolled away peaceful and healed, and somewhere in a little wooden box under Ellie's bed rested one empty brass cartridge, petals scratched deep by a child's love. It never fired again. It never needed to, because some bullets aren't meant to kill. They're meant to remind a man what he's willing to die for, and better yet, what he's finally ready to live for. Partner, that story wrecks me every single time. If it got to you even a little, if it made you think of someone you need to call, someone you need to forgive, someone you need to go home to, then do me 3 favors right now. First, hit that like button so this story can find one more wandering heart. Second, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from tonight. Texas Panhandle, Scottish Highlands, a tractor cab in Iowa with the heater barely working? I read every single one, and I answer as many as I can. Third, and this one's important, share this video with somebody who's running from ghosts, someone who thinks they've gone too far to turn around. Because if Jack Harlan can find his way home, maybe they can too. And if you haven't yet, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell, because every week we sit right here by this fire and tell one more story about broken people choosing to stay. I'll be waiting on you. Until next time, keep your powder dry, your heart open, and your horse pointed toward home. God bless y'all.